Be good. It was just a kiss. You know you're the one I love. Would you believe a man who says that? Before we start the story, tell me in the comments where you're reading it from. At our engagement party, my fiancé Michael kissed his sister bro Chloe for a full 3 seconds. Chloe lay in his arms afterward, laughing at me. Michael, seriously, how did you end up with someone like Lisa? She's so dull. Zero fun. Michael affectionately patted her head. That's exactly why I like her. She's quiet, obedient. The whole private room burst into laughter. All those mocking eyes fell straight on me. Right then, a young man happened to walk past the open door. I stopped him on impulse. Hey, handsome, want to be my fiancé? He froze for a moment, glanced inside to take in the situation, and said, sure, I'd love to. The laughter in the room died instantly. Michael's hand was still resting on Chloe's hair. It took him 2 seconds to react. Lisa, what the hell are you doing? Chloe clung to his arm and snorted. Looks like the dummy finally snapped. I ignored them. I only looked at the young man I'd just called out to. He was calmer than I expected, so calm he even walked into the room unhurriedly, as if nothing was out of place. Well, since you all witnessed it, he stepped to my side and casually pulled an arm around my shoulder. This is my fiancé. The laughter returned, but this time with awkward cracks. Ha ha ha, who the hell is this pretty boy? The young man lifted his eyes, voice cool as ice. Someone with far better manners than all of you. Michael's expression darkened. Bro, she's my fiancé. Ever heard of boundaries? Oh really? He raised a brow. Because all I heard was you calling her dull and obedient. Silence hit the room. My chest tightened. But I lifted my head. If you can't even give me basic respect, I said to Michael, why would I marry you? The air froze. Everyone expected me to burst into tears and run out. Instead, I inhaled slowly and said, starting today, I'm no longer your fiancé. Lisa, Michael roared. But the young man was already leading me out. Let's go, he said, like guiding someone who had already made her choice. My fiancé doesn't belong in a trash pile. The door shut behind us, and the room exploded in chaos. The hallway lights were bright, but my heart was trembling so hard it felt numb. Thank you. I started. I know. The man cut in gently. You needed someone to block for you. He suddenly held out his hand. Let's start over. I'm James Hale. Lisa. Michael's voice exploded behind us, furious, shaken, on the brink of losing control. I flinched. Before I could even turn around, James instinctively stepped in front of me, shielding me with a movement so natural it felt practiced. Michael stormed toward us, face dark like a thundercloud. You get back here. After what you just pulled, you want me to show my face to anyone ever again? I opened my mouth, but he jumped in first, voice dripping with sarcasm. So this is it? A little emotion and you go grabbing some random guy off the street? You think this is funny? Dragging a stranger to pretend to be your fiancé just to piss me off? James lifted a brow, amused. Do I look like some random guy? Michael shot him a glare. This is between me and my fiancé. Stay out of it. I bit down on my lip. I told you, I'm not your fiancé anymore. Shut up. Michael stepped closer, voice dropping to a threatening quiet. You know both our families already booked the banquet? You running off with some stranger, do you want everyone laughing at us? What am I supposed to tell my parents? What are yours supposed to think? His words slammed down like iron, the exact pressure he'd used on me for years. Family, reputation, responsibility, always weighing me down. James suddenly stepped forward, stopping just half a step from Michael. His voice wasn't loud, but it was cold enough to raise goosebumps. She doesn't owe you an explanation. Michael laughed bitterly. And who the hell are you? You've known her how long? You think she'll pick you? She's just soft. She always comes back. Something in me snapped. I inhaled sharply. Michael. I'm not soft anymore. He froze. You kissed another woman, right in front of me. My voice shook, but I didn't stop. When you humiliated me, did you think about what my parents would feel? Did you think about how I was supposed to hold my head up? Michael's face reddened instantly. I had hit the nerve he didn't want exposed. You were never burdened by me. I continued. You just didn't want consequences. Michael grabbed for my arm. Lisa. Stop, touch her and see what happens. James stepped between us, voice low as a blade. Michael froze. Stunned that James dared to stand up to him, the hallway went silent for 3 seconds. Then James reached back and gently took my hand, firm, steady, like offering a doorway to a new life. "Let's go," he murmured. My heart was pounding, but I nodded. Michael's roar exploded behind us. "Lisa, you'll regret this." I didn't look back. The elevator was so quiet, the only sound was the hum of the machinery. I stared at the floor, feeling like my feet weren't touching the ground. The courage I'd had moments ago felt like a sudden heat wave, now fading into something cold and shaky. "Where do you live?" James asked. I gave him my address. He pressed the button and replied casually, "I'll take you home." I shook my head quickly. "No, you've already helped me enough." James didn't even look at me. His voice stayed soft, steady. "Leaving you alone right now, that would be irresponsible." The elevator chimed and opened. His back was straight, clean lines, dependable in a way that genuinely surprised me. At my parents' house I pulled out my key, but before I could use it, the door swung open from inside. My mother stood there, her face darker than the night outside. "Lisa, you still remember how to come home?" My father stood beside her, brows drawn tight. "Michael called us." My chest tightened. Of course he did. My mom immediately snapped, her voice like a lit fuse. "What were you thinking? Running out of your engagement party? Getting tangled with some stranger? How are we supposed to face our relatives?" I opened my mouth, but my dad joined in. "You've always been such a good, sensible child." "What happened?" "Michael said you got emotional for no reason. Did you misunderstand something?" "Misunderstand? Where were they when I was being laughed at in that room?" Mom pressed on, relentless. "Michael said you yelled at him." "Lisa, how could you act like that? Go apologize to him." My chest tightened so hard it hurt. "He kissed another woman," I said quietly. "Did you know that?" Both of them froze, then exchanged a look. "Relationships have little frictions," Mom said quickly, brushing it off. "Every couple fights." I gave a small, broken laugh. "So, you think I was wrong?" Dad sighed impatiently. "It's not about right or wrong. You made things worse." Every word felt like a verdict. Just when my breath began to shake, James finally spoke. "It wasn't a little friction. He kissed another woman, on purpose." My parents jumped in shock, clearly only now noticing him. Mom stared at him. "And you are?" "Her new fiancé," James said calmly, dropping the words like a grenade. My parents' eyes bulged. What?" James continued while they were still frozen, "In that private room, your so-called good son-in-law kissed another woman in front of her. Lisa did nothing wrong." Mom flushed with anger. How dare you? I'm stating facts." James interrupted politely, coldly. "Michael cheated. He humiliated her. She has nothing to apologize for." Dad tried to argue, but James lifted his gaze, steady, sharp, without disrespect. Yet enough to make my dad stop talking, for the first time in years. I felt my chest expand. So this is what it feels like when someone finally stands on your side. Mom tried to regain control. "Lisa, don't let an outsider stir things up, Mom." I cut her off. "Today I'm not letting anyone scold me anymore." Even I was shocked I said that. Dad frowned. "Lisa, is that how you talk to your parents?" I straightened my back slowly. "I just want to be treated like a person, not a gift you're trying to send to someone's house." The hallway froze. James stepped quietly beside me, saying nothing, simply standing like a solid wall at my back. That alone was enough. The air froze for 3 full seconds. Then, like someone lit a fuse, my mom slammed her palm against the doorframe. "Lisa, what has gotten into you today? This isn't like you." My dad's face darkened. "Your mom is only trying to help you. Why are you talking back? Marriage isn't something you can just push aside because you say so." My mom jabbed a finger at James, nearly losing control. "And him, how long have you even known this man? You already won't listen to your own parents?" I took a deep breath. My heart was pounding, but I didn't back down. "Mom, no one bewitched me," I said steadily. "I'm just done." Both of them stiffened. "I've been careful my entire life. And every time Michael said something, you told me to endure it, to understand him, to be patient." My voice trembled, but I held my ground. "So who understands me?" Mom opened her mouth, flustered. But Michael's family conditions are good. He can what?" My laugh was sharp. Bitter. Cheat on me? Humiliate me? Pretend in front of you so you think he's perfect while making me look unreasonable? Dad's face flushed red. Lisa, don't forget everything you have comes from us. We want you to marry well. And you bring this disaster to our door? That struck deep into the exact wound I'd carried for years. James stood beside me quietly, not interrupting, not taking over, because he knew this fight was mine to win. I lifted my head. If marrying well requires me to swallow humiliation, then I don't want it. Both of them stared at me, stunned. Mom snapped, voice shaking. Lisa, are you trying to kill us from anger? I'm not trying to upset you, I said softly. I'm trying to make my own choice for once. Dad's brow furrowed. What are you saying now? My fingers loosened from the doorframe. It felt like I was finally releasing something heavy. I'm not staying home tonight. You wouldn't dare. Mom gasped. I stepped back, putting a clear line between us. I'm 27 years old. Mom, I'm not your property. Dad took a step forward, but James calmly moved to block him. James's voice was firm without being aggressive. She just needs space. She won't get into trouble. Stay out of it. My mom barked. This is our family business. James lowered his eyes, pressing his thumb to his brow, but his tone stayed calm. Maybe, but someone should have asked, who wiped her tears tonight? My parents froze. My breath caught. I hadn't even realized I'd been crying earlier. James didn't push the point. He simply brushed his fingers against the back of my hand. Let's go. Behind us. My parents' voices exploded. Lisa, come back this instant. If you walk out that door, don't come home again. I stopped for a second. That sentence used to be a knife, but now, it didn't make me flinch. I answered quietly, okay, and for the first time, I walked away from them without looking back. James followed beside me, silent, never saying I told you so, just being there. The night wind slipped through my collar as I walked. Only then did I realize how long I'd been out. Home was only a few steps behind me, yet it felt like I'd walked through miles of darkness. I stopped under a street lamp. The light stretched my shadow thin. My throat tightened, blocked by something invisible. You okay? James asked quietly, stepping to my side. His voice was soft, like he was afraid loudness might shatter me. I tried to say I'm fine, but the only words that came out were, I'm so tired. Just 3 words, yet they felt scraped out from somewhere deep inside. Suddenly, the tears wouldn't stop. Not a soft cry, a full collapse. Everything I'd been holding together, the humiliation, the pressure, the years of shrinking myself, broke open like a dam. I crouched down and buried my face, my shoulders shaking so hard I could barely breathe. What did I do wrong? My voice cracked apart. Why is it so easy for him to humiliate me? Why do my parents never stand with me? By the end, I couldn't even form words. James didn't try to pull me up. He didn't tell me to stop crying. He didn't say it would be okay. He simply crouched beside me and stayed, quiet, steady, like the one constant thing in a collapsing world. I cried for a long time, until my fingertips were white from clenching, until my eyes hurt, until I was embarrassed by how hard I'd broken down. Only then did James finally speak. Softly, you didn't do anything wrong. 3 simple words, but they caught me like a net. I sniffed, tears still falling. But they all said, what they say isn't always truth. He said, gently tipping my chin up so I'd look at him. You're not the Lisa they think you are. That sentence hit something deep. I stared at him through blurry eyes. Then, who am I? James thought for a second, then said quietly, you're someone who's been told to be strong your whole life, but never allowed to be sad. My breath trembled, and today, his voice softened even more. Crying makes perfect sense. I let out a shaky laugh, still crying, but somehow, lighter. He took off his jacket and draped it over my shoulders. Warm up, he said. We'll walk slowly. I inhaled the cold night air, feeling my tears finally slow. Thank you, I whispered. James stood up and offered me his hand. You don't have to thank me. I just happened to be here when you needed someone. I hesitated for a second, then put my hand in his. The streetlights dimmed behind us as we walked, but the little 24-hour diner at the corner glowed warm in the distance. James pushed open the glass door. The small bell above it chimed softly. Inside, only a few customers sat scattered around. The air smelled like hot soup and late-night comfort. He chose a booth by the window and slid the menu toward me. Order something warm. My fingers were still trembling a little. I pointed to a simple bowl of beef noodle soup. James ordered a stew for himself. When the waiter left, silence fell between us, but it wasn't uncomfortable. I thought he'd start asking questions about Michael, my parents, the fight, but he didn't. He just held his water glass, blowing gently at the thin fog on the rim, and then quietly asked, "Feel cold after crying?" I lowered my head. "Yeah, totally normal." His tone was so matter-of-fact, it almost made me laugh. Tears take away some body heat. I blinked, surprised again by how gentle he was. "You want something sweet?" he asked. It helps settle the nerves. I shook my head. "You don't have to take care of me so much. I'm afraid I'll get used to it." James lifted his eyes, voice soft but unwavering. "Then it's fine. Get used to it a little." My heartbeat jerked, so sudden. I almost dropped my spoon. The food arrived. The steam from the soup blurred my vision a little. I lifted my chopsticks, only to notice my hand still wasn't steady. James watched for a moment, then quietly pushed his stew toward me. "Drink this." I blinked. "But I haven't had my noodles yet." "Your bowl's too hot," he said calmly. "You're shaking. You'll burn yourself." His tone wasn't bossy, just sure. "Take mine first. It'll warm your stomach." I lowered my head and took a sip. The soup was warm. Not hot, steady. Comforting. James watched me for a few seconds, then let out a small laugh. "No wonder you've been pushed around for so long." I nearly choked. What makes you say that?" "You're too well-behaved," he said matter-of-factly. "People who are too understanding, everyone assumes they can be taken for granted." His words hit somewhere I never touched. I bit my lip, then asked softly, "What about you? What kind of person are you?" He froze for a second like he didn't expect the question. Then he considered it seriously. "Me? Probably the kind of person who can't stand watching someone get bullied." He lifted his eyes and looked at me directly. "Especially you." The way he said it, calm, natural, but it sent a strange warmth fluttering through my chest. I quickly looked down at my soup. James didn't push further. He switched to a lighter topic. "You know, you were pretty cool back there." "Cool?" I stared. I was shaking so hard I almost passed out. "But you still did it," he said softly. "You unlatched the first lock on that cage you were in." I blinked. "Lock?" He pointed gently at my chest. "Too many locks make it hard to breathe." And suddenly I understood. The relationship with Michael. My parents' expectations. Everyone telling me what I should be. For years, I'd been chained by one lock after another. Tonight, I broke the first one. My breath came a little easier. James noticed and smiled, quiet, warm. "From now on," he said, "you'll slowly turn into someone new." My hand paused over the spoon. "New? How?" "Someone you actually like being." The sentence landed softly, but it lit up something inside me. I didn't even realize my eyes were wet again. But this time, it wasn't from pain. It was the feeling of finally breathing. I was still sipping my soup when my phone suddenly lit up on the table. Incoming video call, Michael. There was no ringtone, but seeing his name alone felt like a cold blade pressed against my skin. My hand froze midair. James glanced at the screen but didn't comment. He simply turned his own phone face down, giving me space. My breath tangled in my chest. I hit decline. 3 seconds later, he called again. This time, it was a voice call. I hesitated, then answered. The moment the line connected, Michael's voice filled my ear. "Lisa, are you calm now?" James's hand paused above his spoon, frozen mid-movement. I didn't respond. Michael continued in a tone he probably thought sounded gentle. "I know tonight overwhelmed you. You misunderstood me. But we both shouldn't make impulsive decisions when we're emotional." My stomach twisted. The warm soup suddenly felt like it was rising in my throat. Michael's voice turned even softer, fake softness. Practiced softness. "You were never like this before. You always listened first. You always let me explain. When you ran out tonight, you scared me. Do you know that?" A tear slipped down my cheek. Not from sadness. From disgust. He kept going. Patient and coaxing. "Lisa, baby, tell me where you are. I'll come pick you up. Okay? We'll go home. We'll explain everything to your parents properly." Across the table, James lifted his eyes, cold, sharp, watching me quietly. My lips trembled, but I still said nothing. Michael's tone softened even further. Sickeningly sweet. You must feel guilty now, right? You know you crossed a line tonight. James's jaw tightened. Michael pressed on. We can move past this. Just admit you overreacted. I won't blame you. James reached across the table and lightly placed his hand on my phone, not taking it away. Not interrupting, just grounding me. Only then did I realize my entire body was shaking. Michael's voice suddenly sharpened. And that guy? He's using you, Lisa. He's beneath you. That did it. I finally spoke. Voice hoarse. He treats me better than you ever did. Silence. Sharp and sudden. Then Michael's voice dropped to something dark and dangerous. Lisa. Where did you learn to talk like that? My breath hitched. I knew this tone too well. It always came right before he exploded. You forget who you are, Michael hissed. Without the partnership between our families, you're nothing. James's hand tightened gently around mine. Not taking over. Not silencing me. Just saying, I'm here. Michael snarled. Come home right now and apologize. If you do that, I'll pretend tonight never happened. My lungs felt tight. My pulse hammered in my ears. James leaned slightly closer. Voice low and calm. You can hang up. His words cut through the panic like a lighthouse beam in a storm. I lifted the phone and hit end call. Then I powered it off completely. My hands were still trembling. But inside, something felt strangely light. James withdrew his hand. His voice barely above a whisper. Good job. I closed my eyes and drew in a shaking breath. He wasn't always like this. I finally whispered. James didn't offer empty comfort. He just asked quietly, did he change? Or is tonight simply the first time you're really seeing him? I froze. And that was when the clarity finally set in. I'd barely slipped my phone back into my bag when the diner door was shoved open. The wind rushed in, along with a surge of anger. I jolted in my seat. It was my parents. They must have come straight from home. They looked frantic, exhausted, furious all at once. Mom spotted me immediately and rushed over, not even bothering to take off her coat. Lisa, how could you turn off your phone? Michael said he couldn't reach you. We were worried sick. Dad was right behind her, face dark and stormy. Do you know how upset Michael is right now? Lisa, when did you become so irresponsible? I opened my mouth to explain, but Mom's eyes had already locked on James sitting across from me. She froze, then practically recoiled as if touched by fire. It's him again? James didn't even flinch. He sat calm, composed. Dad narrowed his eyes at him. What exactly have you done to our daughter? Dad, it's not him, I tried to say. But Dad cut me off, stepping closer to James. Are you taking advantage of her emotional state? Trying to interfere with her marriage? Who are you really? At the nearby tables, people had begun to stare. My cheeks burned, not with shame, but with anger. Mom grabbed my arm. Lisa, you're leaving with us. Now, you're not staying here with him another second. Call Michael and apologize immediately. I stood there, frozen. This scene. I'd lived variations of it my whole life. They never asked what I felt. They decided for me, acted for me, spoke for me. But before I could be swallowed by it again, James finally spoke. His voice was calm, polite, but his words were unshakable. Mr. and Mrs. Sanders. Lisa isn't a child. She has the right to make her own decisions. Mom exploded instantly. And who are you to say that? You think you can tell us how to raise our daughter? She barely knows you. James stood, setting down his silverware with a soft click. His posture relaxed, but firm. I didn't force her to do anything. You're the ones pushing too hard. Dad slammed a palm onto the table. You have no right to talk to us like that. We are her parents. James glanced at me. Lisa, he said quietly. What do you want to say? The entire diner hushed, waiting. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. But something inside me, something small but solid, rose to the surface. I finally lifted my head. Can you? My voice cracked. Listen to me for once? My parents froze, stunned silent. I looked them both in the eye, not shrinking, not apologizing. Nothing happened because of James. I left because I wanted to, not for anyone else. They looked shocked, like I'd become a stranger. I continued, voice trembling but steady. Michael kissed another woman. Did either of you ask what that felt like for me? Silence spread across the booth. Mom's lips quivered. Lisa, How can you talk to your mother like, this isn't me arguing? My voice softened, but held firm. This is the first time you're hearing what I actually think. At that moment, the diner door swung open again. Michael walked in perfect condition, looking polished, concerned, like a man playing the role of a misunderstood good fiancé. His eyes locked on me instantly. Lisa, thank God. You scared me to death. He rushed forward, reaching for my hand. I stepped back, fast. Michael froze, arm hanging in the air. His pleasant expression cracked. He tried to recover, forcing gentleness. Lisa, sweetheart, let's go home, okay? You're upset. I get it. I cut him off. I looked him straight in the eye. Michael, we're done. The diner fell silent, like the world inhaled but didn't exhale. My parents shouted simultaneously, Lisa, but I didn't flinch. Michael's fake concern shattered instantly. His eyes darkened in disbelief. What did you just say? I said. I repeated, clearer, stronger, we're done. Michael froze, hands still suspended in the air. He clearly hadn't expected me to say it twice. His smile collapsed, bit by bit. Then anger seeped in like ink in water. Lisa, you can't be serious. But I didn't waver. We're done, Michael. He inhaled sharply, then grabbed my wrist, hard. You think you're ending a 3-year relationship with one sentence? Don't be ridiculous. You're coming with me. Pain shot up my arm. James stood immediately. Let go of her. Michael glared at him. This is between me and my fiancé. Stay out of it. I yanked my arm away, voice rising. I'm not your fiancé. Michael's chest heaved. You're just upset. You're blowing this out of proportion. I'm not upset, I said through shaking breaths. I'm done. You don't know what you're saying. Michael snapped, voice cracking with fury. You're letting some stranger get in your head. I shook my head. No, Michael, I'm finally hearing my own. Michael's jaw clenched so tight I heard it click. You're making the biggest mistake of your life. He growled. You're nothing without me. James stepped closer, positioning himself between us, but not touching me, letting me speak for myself. I faced Michael squarely. You kissed another woman in front of me, in front of everyone, and then you mocked me for being obedient and boring. My voice shook but didn't break. You embarrassed me, over and over. And you expected me to stay? Michael let out a broken, angry laugh. It was a joke. God. Lisa, can't you take a joke? Why are you acting so dramatic, so immature? My mother jumped in, panicked. Lisa, you're getting married in 2 weeks. Think rationally. I am thinking rationally, I said flatly. For the first time, Dad tried to pull me aside. Lisa, this isn't Dad, I said, raising my voice just enough. Please stop choosing him over me. Everyone froze. Michael's expression twisted. So you're choosing him? He pointed at James. That's what this is about? I shook my head. No, I'm choosing me. James's expression softened for a split second, barely noticeable. Michael's breathing grew ragged. When you come crawling back, he hissed. Don't expect me to take you. I stared straight into his furious eyes. I won't crawl back. Michael's face contorted. Then, in a burst of rage, he swung his arm, shoving the table so hard the plates rattled. Customers gasped. My parents froze. James stepped forward instantly, voice low and lethal. That's enough. Michael pointed at me, trembling with fury. You think you can walk away from me? Watch me destroy everything you have. Then he turned and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. The bell above it jangled violently, echoing his rage. For several seconds, the diner was completely silent. Then James draped his jacket over my shoulders with a calmness that cut through the chaos. Let's get you out of here, he murmured. My knees nearly buckled with relief. I wasn't afraid anymore. For the first time in years, I felt free. I thought once Michael stormed off, things would finally calm down. I was wrong. That same night, barely 2 hours after I got home, my phone started vibrating nonstop. Not from Michael. From my company. You don't need to come in tomorrow. Your position has been reassigned. I stared at the messages in disbelief. Then someone anonymously dropped screenshots into my department chat, fabricated chat logs of me being unstable, having a bad attitude, and causing drama at the engagement party. I felt my stomach drop. I knew immediately who was behind it. Michael was already retaliating. He wasn't trying to win me back. He was trying to break me until I crawled back. I wanted to defend myself, explain, say something. But the entire group chat went silent, like everyone had already been warned. He moves faster than I expected. James's voice came from the doorway. I turned around. He was standing there in a dark jacket, as if he'd come straight over. I swallowed hard. He wants to force me to go back. James walked toward me, gently taking the phone from my hand and setting it on the table. He thinks you're still afraid of him. My chest tightened. I really lost my job. James studied me for a moment, then said something I never expected. That's good. I blinked. Good? You don't need to stay in a life he built, he said quietly. You need to stand somewhere he can't reach. Something in me loosened, like a knot I didn't know I'd been holding. I opened my mouth to respond, ding dong. I froze. The doorbell wasn't just ringing. It was furious. James's expression darkened instantly. He's here. My pulse stopped. Then, the door shook under heavy blows. Lisa! Open the door! Michael's voice was hoarse with rage. You think you can hide from me? Terror shot through me. I started shaking. James stepped in front of me immediately. Stay away from the door. Michael kept pounding on the frame, voice breaking. You think you can dump me? You think you can just walk away? Lisa! Open the damn door right now. Thud, he rammed the door violently. I screamed before I could stop myself. James spun to me, voice low and razor sharp. Lisa, listen to me. He paused, steadying his tone. This moment is the moment you finally wake up. Michael slammed the door again. Lisa, get out here. I realized then, hiding wouldn't fix anything. He would never stop. Not unless I stopped him. My hands shook, but I pushed off the wall. I need to end this, I whispered. James frowned. He's not rational, but I am. My voice came out steadier than I expected. And I can't keep running. James studied me for a long second, then nodded. I'm right beside you. I stepped to the door. My fingers hovered over the lock. My heart was beating so violently I could barely breathe, but I didn't back away. I unlocked the door and pulled it open. Michael almost stumbled forward, mid-slam. His expression twisted when he saw me standing tall, not cowering. He hadn't expected this. Before he could speak, I said, Michael, we're done. His face contorted. Are you insane? You think you can? Yes. I said. One sentence is enough. You're out of your mind. He tried to grab me again, but James caught his wrist midair, squeezing hard, enough to make Michael gasp. Don't touch her. Michael jerked his arm back, seething. Oh, I get it. He spat. You think he can protect you? You think he can stop me? I stepped forward, meeting his furious, shaking eyes head on. No, I'll stop you. Michael froze. I'm not scared anymore, I said. You can threaten me. You can smear me. You can try to ruin my job, but you can't control me. Michael's chest heaved. You don't get to enter my life anymore. Just then, footsteps echoed from the hallway. Police. A neighbor must have called. One officer stepped forward. Is this the apartment where the disturbance came from? Who is banging on the door? I pointed straight at Michael. He was. He's been threatening me. Michael paled. You, Lisa. Don't you dare. The police moved in immediately. Sir, step away. We need to ask you a few questions. Michael backed up, raging. You're making a mistake. Lisa, you're making the biggest. The hallway door closed behind him as the officers escorted him away, cutting off the rest of his shouting. Then, silence. Complete silence. I stood there, my shoulders trembling once, then slowly loosening. For the first time, I felt the weight slip off my chest. James stepped up beside me. It's over, he said softly. How do you feel? I inhaled, a deep breath that finally didn't hurt. I feel, my voice broke, but with relief, like I got my life back. James smiled, quiet, proud. You did. I looked out at the empty hallway. The past belonged out there now, behind a closed door, and for the first time, I was ready to walk forward. Michael being escorted away by the police should have been the end of the nightmare. But the next morning, just as I finished pouring a cup of warm milk, someone rang the doorbell again. This time, I wasn't scared. I opened the door and saw my parents standing there. They looked like they hadn't slept a minute. My mom's eyes were swollen, Dad's face was tight with exhaustion. Mom spoke first, her voice trembling. "Lisa, are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said, truthfully. They both seemed surprised, as if they expected me to break down the second I saw them. Dad cleared his throat, the anger gone from yesterday. "Your mom and I heard the police came last night. We got scared." I nodded slowly. "Thanks for checking on me." That stunned them even more. Mom hesitated. "Can we come in?" I stepped aside. The living room felt strangely quiet with them sitting there. Dad exhaled a long, heavy breath. "Lisa, about last night." His voice dropped. "We reacted too strongly." Mom's eyes immediately reddened. "I didn't know Michael would do something like that. I thought he was a reliable man." I didn't interrupt. For the first time, I let them talk. Mom's voice shook as she continued, "We just wanted you to have a stable life. We didn't realize we were pushing you somewhere painful." My throat tightened. I whispered, "Mom, you two always thought I was fragile, that you had to choose for me." Mom froze for a second. Dad sighed. "We thought it was helping." I looked down at my hands, but it made me scared of choosing anything for myself. "And that's the weakness Michael took advantage of." Mom covered her mouth, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Lisa, I'm sorry." Dad dropped his gaze too. "We really were wrong." Mom reached out as if to hold my hand, but hesitated, like she wasn't sure she still had the right. "Lisa," she whispered, "can we try again? Not us telling you what to do, but us learning how to listen?" Something in me softened, slowly, unexpectedly. For the first time, I saw my parents not as towering figures, but as two flawed, frightened adults trying to repair what they'd broken. I nodded. "Okay, but from now on, I make my own decisions." Dad looked at me, truly looked, maybe for the first time. "Then we respect that," he said quietly. Mom wiped her tears. "As long as you're happy, whoever you choose, whatever you choose, we'll support you." I swallowed hard. "Thank you." They exchanged a look, one full of guilt, relief, and something like pride. Then in unison, they whispered, "We're sorry, Lisa." It was the most healing thing I'd heard in years. I realized then, I wasn't the only one growing. They were learning too. Before leaving, Dad placed a hand on my shoulder. "If anything happens," he said, "tell us. Not so we can choose for you, but because we want to know you're okay." I smiled, genuinely. "I will." After my parents left, I realized something, for the first time in years. I wasn't living in fear. I didn't rush to find a new job. I gave myself a week, a real break. And during that week, I did 3 simple things. Day 1, I slept until my body decided to wake up. Day 2, I cooked myself a breakfast I actually wanted. Day 3, I deleted every picture, message, and gift from Michael. When I hit delete on the last folder, I felt lighter, like I'd shed a winter coat I hadn't realized I'd been wearing. On day 4, I remembered something I'd buried for years, my dream of becoming an illustrator. Not for work, not for approval, not to make someone proud, but because I loved it. I dug out some old sketches from my college years. My hands trembled as I held them, like I was meeting an old version of myself I'd abandoned. James was sitting on the couch watching me flip through them. "You're good," he said softly. I gave a small, self-deprecating laugh. That was the old me. James tilted his head. "And why would the current you be worse?" I froze. He was right. This version of me, the one who escaped, who chose herself, wasn't weaker. If anything, she might be stronger. On day 5, I ordered a new drawing tablet. When I opened the box, I felt like I was unboxing a new future. On day 6, I posted my first illustration online under an anonymous account. I expected nothing. Within 30 minutes, "Your style feels so comforting. Can you post more? Are you a professional illustrator?" I stared at the comments, and something warm unfurled inside my chest. Strangers, people who owed me nothing, liked something I created. On day 7, I finally asked myself, what kind of job do I want? Did I want to return to office admin work? Did I want to go back to the safe little box I'd lived in? The answer was surprisingly clear. I didn't want stable if stable meant suffocating. I didn't want proper if proper meant shrinking. I wanted a job that left me time to draw. So I applied to places I never would have before: a local arts and crafts store, a small illustration studio, a junior editor position at an indie comic platform. I wasn't chasing prestige, I was chasing myself. 3 days later, a small local art store called me. The owner's voice was bright. "Your resume looks good. But what really impressed me was your illustration link. Would you like to come in for a trial shift?" I froze. "You saw my drawings?" "Of course. I loved them." My heart thumped wildly. I can come tomorrow." After the call ended, I leaned back in my chair and laughed, a light, unrestrained laugh, a kind I hadn't heard from myself in years. James walked over and handed me a warm mug. "Good news?" he asked. I nodded. "I got a job." He smiled, slow and genuine. "Congratulations. It's a job I chose for myself," I said softly. James's expression grew even warmer. "That's the best kind." That was when it hit me. I was no longer living in reaction to Michael. No longer bending myself for my parents. I was building my own life, piece by piece, step by step. And it felt good, so good. Working every day surrounded by handmade crafts, picture books, and small warm objects changed me in ways I didn't expect. The people I met were light-hearted, genuine. No one looked down on me, and no one told me what to do. If I wanted to draw, I drew. If I wanted silence, I kept it. For the first time, life moved at my rhythm. A month later, I moved out of the apartment Michael and I once chose together. It was the first time I'd ever moved not to follow someone, not to make anyone else's life better, but for myself. My new place was tiny, barely 300 square feet, but the sunlight was beautiful. In the afternoon, the warm light would spill in, brightening my drawing table and illuminating the part of myself I had finally reclaimed. James helped me move some of the heavier boxes that day. I poured him a glass of orange juice. He leaned against the window, watching me move around the space. "You can tell," he said with a small smile. "You really like it here." I nodded. "I do. This place feels like me." "Soft?" he asked. I shook my head and lifted my eyes to his. "No. Free." James froze for a few seconds, then smiled. "Softer than the sunlight." "That's good. That's how you should be." Sometimes James came to pick me up from work in the evenings. We'd take the long way home, just to see the city lights or to feel the night wind on our faces. He never pushed, never hovered too close, but he was always there. He knew how to keep his distance, and he knew how to step closer when I needed it. The store owner often teased me, "That friend of yours, the way he looks at you isn't normal." I just laughed. He's waiting for me to be ready, because this time, I wanted to choose carefully, not out of loneliness, not out of dependence. I wanted to wait until I could love myself fully, and only then love someone else. And James, he was endlessly patient. Things with my parents had shifted too. They didn't make decisions for me anymore. They asked what I thought, what I wanted. One day, my mom told me, "We're learning how to be better parents." I hugged her, smiling, and I'm learning how to be a better me. We were all growing, none of us stuck in the past. One evening, as I was closing the shop, the sunset was this beautiful warm orange. James walked in with my favorite milk tea, setting it casually on the counter. "Did you draw something new today?" "I did." I showed him, a little bird breaking out of its shell. He stared at the drawing for a few seconds, then said softly, "Looks like you." My heart skipped. He lifted his head, meeting my eyes, his voice barely above a whisper, as if he didn't want to startle me. "Lisa, the person you are now, you're not someone who escaped. You're someone who stepped out." I froze. He was right. Every step I took now was one I chose myself. James took a slow breath, his voice gentler still. "If you're willing, I'd like to keep walking forward with you." I didn't answer right away. Instead, I walked out from behind the counter, stood in front of him, and looked up into his eyes. I asked softly, "How long are you willing to wait for me?" James smiled, eyes filled with the kind of warmth that could hold an entire night. "Until the moment you're ready to take my hand." I smiled too. Then I reached for him. He took my hand gently. I once thought freedom meant escaping someone, but later I learned, freedom is the ability to choose for yourself. I once thought rebirth meant changing my life completely, but then I realized, rebirth begins the moment you're no longer afraid of old wounds. Now, I have a job I love, a patient and steady presence by my side, parents who listen, and a stronger version of myself. I walked out of that old path, never looking back, never needing to, because I finally understood, nothing I have now is charity. Nothing is luck. Nothing is handed to me. I earned all of it, step by step, with my own hands. The road ahead is long, but I'm not afraid anymore, because I've learned to hold my life in the palm of my own hand. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any thoughts about this story, feel free to share them in the comments section. Here is Roses and Love, sharing stories about marriage and women every day. See you tomorrow.